if you throw a 50-yarder, it's 5 first downs. So it shows up on the stat sheet a little differently, but the production is great when you're able to kind of hit those home run balls.
Tom, you have kids of your own. How would you respond if your kids heard Donald Trump's version of locker room talk?
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Tom Brady received a lot of backlash for dodging Donald Trump questions last week from the media. Tom and Donald met in 2002 when he judged a Miss USA pageant, which was then run by Trump's organization. Brady did admit that he's friends with Trump, but he didn't offer an endorsement of any kind. Here's Tom addressing the situation on WEEI yesterday.
It's just the way it is right now. There's obviously a lot to, there's a lot of, headlines to make and so forth. So. And I've tried never to make a lot of headlines, but it's just hard enough to win and prepare without the distractions. So then when you start having the distractions, it's even harder to prepare. I met him, I guess probably 15, 16 years ago. So we just, played golf together many, many times. And, I've always had a good time with him. So, like I said, he's been a friend of mine. He's supported our teams for the Patriots. He's been on the Patriots sidelines a lot, and always called me, after games to encourage me, and over the course of 15 years, that's kind of the way it is. Yeah, I'll vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it after Super Tuesday or whatever it is.
Well, Kane, back with us. Well, I want to start with you here. Do you feel that Brady needed to give an explanation for his Trump comments or lack thereof?
Absolutely, 100% not. And I think it's embarrassing that the media thinks that he should be held accountable. Tom Brady's a private citizen who has his own political beliefs. He hasn't particularly advocated for Donald Trump. He hasn't put himself out there. He's friends with Donald Trump. He had his hat, the Make America Great Again hat, in his locker. He's like every other private citizen. In fact, he's done way less advocating than you could name, dozens, hundreds of celebrities who've cut videos on one side or the other of this election. He simply had an opinion, we assume. Maybe he's just a friend. That's another thing. We don't actually know what Tom Brady thinks of Donald Trump. And for some reason, the media feels like Tom Brady should be drug out, browbeat, forced to explain every Donald Trump opinion, every Donald Trump statement, because he has a relationship with the guy. And I think it's an embarrassment at this point that you take a public figure like private citizen, but public figure, and make him accountable for somebody else's opinions. And you're not interested. The big question is, why do you care? Why do you care? This is a football player. This is the quarterback of the New England Patriots. Why do you care what he believes? And you don't care like, oh, it's interesting, it's kind of fascinating. You care like, oh, he must be made to be held accountable. That's the kind of care you seem to have about this, and it's inappropriate. It's wrong. You don't do that to private citizens.
I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I think your opinion is wrong, and I think it's clueless. That's number one. Number two, having said that, I want to make sure that before I go into what I'm about to say, you're known as a conservative. That does not mean that you're supporting this candidate over that candidate or anything. This is not a political discussion. I want to make sure that I say that to our audience, because a lot of people believe that, just because you have an ideology, that must mean you're supporting a particular candidate. That is not true.
Can I just add one quick point to add to that?
Please.
There's such thing in life as principles and beliefs beyond brands and teams.
That's right.
If you want to know my opinion, to be honest, if you want to know my opinion on Donald Trump, you can go back to 2011 when I used to talk politics. You can find out what I think of Donald Trump in particular.
That's right.
But my opinion of Donald Trump is divorced of whether or not Tom Brady should be held accountable for the beliefs of someone he has very little relationship
because
to.
I didn't want to go off and people assume that it was. That's why I'm glad. That's why I brought that up. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I also want to make sure that everybody understands I'm not pointing the finger at Tom Brady, because I don't think Tom Brady did anything wrong. My issue, it was what I expressed last week on First Take. It is what I went on WEEI and expressed to them as well. Great radio station. Tom Brady talks to them weekly. I said that, and I'm going to say it to you again. The reason why I think your position is clueless is because y'all are living in some kind of bubble if y'all don't know what the hell I'm talking about. There is no way on earth any athlete that I know of, I said black athlete, but I'm not limiting it just to them, the LeBron James of the world, the Wayne Wade, CP3s, the Kobe's, and others. I'm not limiting it just to them. I think a Peyton Manning, I think other white marquee athletes would not, they would not have gotten a pass that Tom Brady had. And here's what I mean by a pass. Tom Brady with the hat "Make America Great Again" on his locker stall. Tom Brady sitting up there talking about Donald Trump as a friend. It's not that Donald Trump has been polarizing as a political candidate for the presidency. It's what he made news for last week. That's the issue. That transcended, even though we're talking about a presidential nomination, it transcended all of that when it got to the issue of folks labeling him a sexual predator because of the things that he was caught on tape saying to Billy Bush. I'm saying based off of that issue alone, in the times that we're living in, there is no way on God's green earth that a marquee athlete like a LeBron James or somebody else who is on the record calling this individual his friend 5 hours prior to a presidential debate where he's right there in front of you, there is no way those players would not have been asked. Did you hear what he said? What were your feelings about that? Excuse me, you said he was your friend. Did he have these conversations around you? What kind of things do y'all talk about in that country club when y'all out there playing golf together? How do you feel about him? You have daughters. How do you feel about what he had to say? Don't tell me that the modern day marquee athlete would have gotten away with not being asked that question. That's not Tom Brady's fault. I'm talking about the media. I'm saying, wait a minute. Anybody else would have been asked those questions. So when I went on WEEI, Dennis Callahan, great guys, I sat up there and I said, wait a minute, guys, I'm not pointing the finger at Tom Brady here. I'm saying, who would have gotten away as a marquee athlete in this day and age? Who would have gotten away without even having? Now, they said they asked him a question. And I said, okay, fair enough, because I didn't know that WEEI had asked a question. But I was saying, looking at stories and things of that nature, I never saw it addressed. And I don't know of any marquee athlete in this day and age that would have gotten away without that inquiry being presented to them. That was my issue.
Nor should Tom Brady. You are very wrong-headed about this. Tom Brady is a private citizen. He's also a public figure. There are cameras in the locker room. If they see a hat supporting a candidate, an especially controversial candidate, who's made many comments and has displayed much behavior, that if any one of us were to espouse, or various private citizens were to espouse, just say what he said, let alone done some of those things, it would be fired from their jobs. I mean, and the statement on the way out would be, this is a tolerant workplace, and this is so this is not an ordinary situation. It's an extraordinary situation. There's no false equivalency among candidates as there normally is in normal national presidential elections. And so it is not fair to say that, particularly as Stephen A. pointed out, what's taken place recently, that an athlete, particularly maybe the face of the NFL, maybe the best player in the game, who's lent his considerable public weight to a cause, if not entirely with, plunging in, certainly at least peripherally in a way that other people can see, he's going to be asked about that. Hold on a second. Okay, go ahead, Bill, because I have other things I want to say. But go ahead.
Sure.
No, you've been waiting.
No.
Come on. Yes.
This is not, and I think it's to your point, this is not really, honestly, or shouldn't be, about Donald Trump. It's about Tom Brady. And what I take exception to is the media hauling Tom Brady out before a public flogging to be yelled shame at. You're not asking these questions because you really want to know Tom Brady's political opinion.
Yes.
You really want to get him out in front of you and yell shame. And yell shame for what?
Right.
For the opinions of someone else. Hold on, Max. Not for Tom Brady's opinions, but the opinions of someone else.
But if you support someone else, then the questions they're asking is, what part of this guy...
You don't know if he supports Donald Trump.
Well, okay, so that's what's being asked. Do you support him? What portion of his platform do you support? Do you support the things he said? This is a candidate running for national office and a big public figure lending him that support.
Well, let me piggyback off of that. Those are legitimate questions. But the importance of the issue at hand for me is about fairness.
Yeah, I get that point. I do.
If you would do this to no one else, then I have no problem with it. But we know that if LeBron James now LeBron James
he has endorsed.
I know that, and Tom Brady has not endorsed Trump, so he says.
It's not the same thing.
But LeBron endorsed Hillary, and I explained this to the dudes on WEEI, who I respect, but I don't mind tussling with from time to time when I disagree with them, even though I hate doing it at 7 o'clock in the morning. Let me say this. They said, well, Hillary Clinton's a polarizing figure. I'm saying you can't compare the two. Here's why I'm saying it. Because hers is directly as it pertains to politics. Benghazi, emails, national security, the political aficionados, the pundits, the commentators, yes, they may know it, but the average Joe may not. But when you talk about grabbing women and forcing yourself upon them, that's a far more expensive.
Wait, I want to get to Tom Brady's response, because I actually thought it was a very good one, and this is why
I have no problem with his response. I have no problem with his response.
Was an excellent one, and I think it's the best possible one. His basic response is this: look, I'm a loyal person, and this is my friend. And human beings, our brains are wired in such a way that we tend to judge people based on the way they treat us and our personal interaction and experience with them, not the way we hear they treat other people in some abstract kind of way. So Brady's defense of himself, and he needs one, is a very good one. And I would say that those who publicly support certain people will be judged unkindly by history, and it's actually in Brady's interest
not the issue.
to be asked these questions.
This all comes together because, first of all, on the hypocrisy point and the consistency point, would other people be held or be allowed this pass that Tom Brady, you suggest, is getting?
Yes.
Whether or not it's true, there is a should question. Should people be held accountable for the actions and statements of other people? And I don't think that they should. I don't think they should.
But I'm not disagreeing. Hold on, Matt. I'm not saying that you're wrong. What I'm saying is you're not living in reality, because you know good and damn well they would be.
But
and that's the point.
There's still knowing your lane and knowing your role. And here's the thing. Here, sports journalists desperately, for some reason, want to dive into politics.
That's not true.
We look for every excuse to get into politics. No, I hear people on this network.
I am that way, but I would say most are not. They're not brave enough to do it.
People on this network consistently want to talk about politics when we don't, and we use a guy like Tom Brady as our excuse to have these false equivalency conversations. What you need to realize is you can have your political beliefs. You can have your
I agree with that.
And you don't need to take everyone that disagrees
you're not being fair.
and flog them publicly.
I'm attacking your issue with fairness, because what I'm saying to you is I don't disagree with what you just said. My problem is you act like you're living in a bubble somewhere. You're not paying attention to what reality is. You and I both know. The fact is most athletes would not have gotten that pass. Now, they should. They should, but you know they wouldn't in this day and age. Look at the business that we're in.
Here's how this argument goes.
It would not happen. So if you know that would not happen, why did it happen for Tom Brady?
But here's how this argument goes. That's not true what you're saying, because Tom Brady is being held to account, for example, that LeBron James is not for endorsing Hillary.
I want to answer that question, Will.
I know
want to answer that question.
I know what the rebuttal is, that it's a false equivalency.
No, that's not the rebuttal here. The rebuttal is this. That's a straw man. He's not being held accountable for it. He's being asked questions about it. Given what has been said and what has been done by a certain candidate, your support for him, we'd like to ask you something.
Presumed support.
Well, okay, fine. A hat supporting him, he's my friend, etc. Presumed support, but that's okay. Should we make that presumption? Do you support him? What about him do you support? And what about this various behavior? Because your support
I'm gonna drop the mic.
Wait a minute. Can be seen as by people as an endorsement of that behavior.
I'm gonna drop the mic on this right now. We have one lady here at this desk. Based on the news that was made by that particular candidate, the #1 face in the #1 sport in the United States of America was on record saying he is friends with this guy and I support my friends. You don't want to know how he feels in the immediate aftermath of that sound coming out?
Yeah,
of course you do.
But you don't just want to know. You don't just want to know. You want to take him out, browbeat him, yell shame at him. That's
I want to get to this point.
I want to get to this point.
not if he answers the questions.
You
They're
gotta ask the
legitimate
question.
questions to ask, and,
gotta ask the
and
question.
being held accountable. That's not saying you're responsible for what he says. We're saying clarify your position here, because the
There's so
presumption
many
is you
layers to
support
this
him.
conversation.
But the question where we started this conversation was whether or not Tom Brady's explanation was enough.
Yeah.
And my answer to you is it is enough,
Yes.
because he doesn't owe you an answer. He doesn't owe Max Kellerman an answer just because you think it's a false equivalency between these two candidates.
No.
By the way,
in this day and age, he does owe.
Something I may agree with, but I allow people to have their opinions.
So
And you
do
know what
I.
do?
In this day and
I
age, he
disagree.
owes it.
That's it.
In this day and
disagree.
age, he owes it because every other athlete would have to deal
That's
with
the
it.
thing.
You're insisting- you're
The
insisting
different
that his
standard
answers
is
aren't
what
good
you're
enough.
It's
getting.
I'm not saying
standard.
that.
It's the standard.
It was a great conversation, though. We will leave it there. Will, thank you for being
Thank
with us.
you.
I appreciate it.